Hey guys, Jeremy here with KISS Aquatic Systems. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So today we're going to be talking about how to feed your koi. How much food do they really need? So it can be a bit of a tricky question to answer, but a very important one to get right. Because if you're chronically overfeeding or underfeeding your fish, they are going to have health problems. So how to determine how much food your koi actually need? Well, there is an easy way and a hard way to approach that question. Let's of course start with the hard way. So there are a ton of different factors that all work together to determine how much food your koi need to and want to eat. First is size and age. So smaller, younger koi typically grow a lot faster and eat a lot more food as a percentage of their body weight than bigger, more mature koi, which tend to be a lot lazier. Close second is water temperature. So koi are fish and fish are cold-blooded, which means that they are a lot more active and eat a lot more when the water temperature is higher than when it's lower. So obviously your koi are going to eat a lot more in the summer than in the other months. But temperature fluctuations can happen day to day, depending on the short-term weather. So important to keep that in mind as well. Thirdly, how a koi is feeling goes a long way in determining how much it wants to and will eat. So a koi that's stressed or sick or injured will typically eat a lot less food than a happy, healthy, relaxed koi. Another thing to watch out for is spawning. So, shortly before spawning, koi will have very little interest in food. They would much rather chase each other around the pond. And after spawning, they will also have very little interest in food because they will be trying to eat every single egg they just laid. And finally, the amount of natural forage that your pond provides is another factor that influences how many pellets your koi are willing to eat. The koi are opportunistic omnivores, so they graze algae, they eat plants, both aquatic plants and plants that happen to fall into the pond. They love live foods, so any insects that fall into the pond are fair game. I watched one of my koi a year or two ago eat live hornets that fell into the water. Freaked me out, but seemed to enjoy them. Koi love worms. Every fish loves worms. A mature, healthy pond can house a lot of aquatic insects and things like worms, insect larvae, dragonfly nymphs, damselfly nymphs, and all kinds of other critters that koi will love to eat and will probably prefer over pellets. So, taking all these factors together, clearly we can see there are a lot of different things that determine how hungry koi are and how much you should feed them. So how to go about determining how many pellets they actually need? Well, if you go online and look at the information that's publicly available, it can be weirdly specific and unhelpful. So let's see, I've heard that you want to feed very young koi up to 5% of their body weight per day, mid-sized koi up to a foot, 1 to 2% of their body weight, and large koi about a half a percent of their body weight per day. Which is great, but almost nobody knows how heavy your koi actually are, and almost nobody weighs the food they give. So not particularly helpful. Also, any koi pellet ever designed and sold will have detailed instructions on the back about how to feed your koi at different water temperatures. You're supposed to feed them once a day, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 17 times, depending on how fast they eat the pellets at different temperatures. It's very specific and also oddly unhelpful. So, all that put together, how do you figure out how to feed your koi? Well, let's move on to the easy way to answer that question. The easy way to think about how to feed your koi is don't think about it at all. aren't you glad I started with the hard way? So, this is how I feed my koi. I walk up to the pond, I say hi, the koi say hi, they tell me exactly how hungry they are, and I feed them accordingly. Instead of trying to figure out the water temperature, the size of the fish, all the other variables, you let your koi figure it out for you. They tend to know exactly how much food they need, and listen to them and feed them accordingly. It's that simple. Koi are very, 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 very expressive fish. Maybe too expressive. They'll tell you exactly how they're feeling at all times about everything. And one thing koi particularly love to do is tell you how hungry they are. So as a koi owner, all you really need to do is learn how to read the cues and listen. I know my koi well. I know when they're hungry, when they beg for food. So how do koi beg for food? They swim up to me, they open and close their mouths, wagging their little pectoral fins, and it's really cute. And when they beg for food, I feed them. You can also tell how hungry they are based on how they respond to pellets. So a hungry koi will sometimes, if they're very hungry, devour and attack pellets. But even if they don't really attack the pellets, which you really won't see as much of in colder water or bigger fish, a hungry koi will methodically and meticulously eat every single pellet, and they will immediately show interest the moment the pellets hit the water. How do I know when my koi are not hungry? Well, the clearest signal is when they start playing with their food. So my koi play with their food by swallowing a bunch of pellets, spitting them back out, recapturing them, chewing on them again, spitting them out, and they'll do this for a while. So when I start seeing this behavior, I know I've probably fed a bit too much. Also, fish that aren't hungry will not show immediate interest in pellets, or if you have a pond full of koi, if only a few of your fish are showing interest, then you probably should stop feeding the pond. So, yeah, guys, it really is that simple. A couple other guidelines that I like to follow when it comes to feeding koi. I will never feed my fish anytime near dawn or dusk or at night. And that's quite simply because I worry about predators. And I know a lot of predators in my area are out and active at dawn and dusk and in the dark, so I want my fish nowhere near the surface these times. Second thing to think about is how many times a day to feed your koi. Well, koi aren't built like us humans. They don't really have stomachs that can allow them to take advantage of big meals. So they are grazers by nature, so the best way to feed them is to try to recreate that as closely as possible. That means more frequent, smaller feedings is best. And lastly, let's talk about winter feeding. So everyone seems to have a pretty strong opinion one way or the other about whether or not you should feed your fish in the winter. And for me, I pretty much follow the same rule as any other time of year, which is if my koi are telling me they're hungry, I feed them. Now, I do live in the northeastern US where it does get pretty cold in the winter. So I am a lot more careful feeding that time of year than any other season. So first off, if I do feed my koi at all, it's a very, very, very tiny amount, and only the highest quality food that I can find. Also, when it comes to winter feeding, I am very mindful of the weather and the weather forecast. So I will only feed my koi if they're begging for food, a tiny amount of food, if the weather is supposed to stay nice for at least another 24 hours. So the way it usually works is something like this. So let's say there's a 5-day heat wave in January. First day, fish are not hungry, the water's still cold. Second day, they may want a little bit of food, so I'll feed them. Same as the third day and the fourth day. But even if they're hungry on the fifth day, I will not feed them if the next day is forecast to be colder. So that seems to have worked for me, but in general, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but you do need to be much more careful in the winter. So yeah, guys, that's really it when it comes to koi feeding. Uh, Koi look hungry, I feed them. I feed them until they don't look hungry. It really is that simple. So thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care and happy ponding.